So, what sort of racing games do you like to play? Smooth, crisp, realistic simulators? Kart races with power-ups and speed boosts? Or how about destruction races? Destruction Derby 2 is a game that I've loved since I was a small boy, and I know the feeling is mutual among many of my friends who grew up with it as well. The visceral carnage of mechanical mayhem screaming down courses you try to survive lap after lap of intense racing action as the wrecks pile up and the success is stacked on top. My love quickly blossomed into curiosity to seek out the next best demolition racer I could find from within the Destruction Derby series and beyond. So today, we're going to take a ride through the entire series of games and see if they're still as fun as we remember, and then we'll see the legacy it left behind with all of the copycats and spiritual successors that would follow. Welcome to the complete history of the Destruction Derby franchise. Let's establish a quick background on where racing games were at prior to the first title. For as long as man has walked on Earth, racing video games have been available. Rally games, Formula 1, motorbikes, you name it. It's one of the most diverse genres there is. These early examples are all 2D and sprite-based, arcade-style action with simulated speed. Still loads of fun, but they don't offer the carnal action we like to see. Big hits, mangled cars, and driver rivalries. One of the first titles to attempt this was Destruction Derby from 1975 in arcades, which was later repackaged into Death Race in '76. Yeah, take a guess how that went over in the 70s. Not very well. Almost a decade later, a midway arcade known as Demolition Derby was a much better example of what we're looking for. A vehicular deathmatch in all of its pixelated glory. But as graphics moved into 3 dimensions in the 90s, so did a greater emphasis on realism, which for as impressive as a lot of races of this era were, they also had moved away from that fun, dumb arcade action we all loved, reserving it for the more kid-friendly kart racing genre. But then there was Destruction Derby in 1995, one of the earliest releases on the competing PlayStation and Sega Saturn consoles. Developed by Reflections, who would go on to specialise in car games over the years, and published by Psygnosis, the original developers of Wipeout, it's safe to say with that information that the racing genre was about to be shaken up hardcore. What is with the weird music here? It does not fit at all. It's the sort of thing I'd expect to hear if I was playing Dance Dance Revolution, not some tough blood and guts racing game. Yeah, it's really out of place. I mean, it's not bad music, it's generic more than anything, but yeah, very odd choice. Anyway, the primary modes here are stock car racing or wreckin' racing, which is what we want to play, where you get points for trashing other racers. Now, let's just select our car. Oh, it has to load the vehicle selection screen? Man, that seems so unnecessary. All of that just for a weak 3 options. Rookie, amateur, or pro. Look, whatever, let's just race. The first map is a circle. A boring, flat circle. Yeah, it's quite underwhelming, I must say. And trust me, 2 laps into the 12 laps expected of us, you're gonna start to feel a little car sick. I mean, I'm not going to knock the graphics too much because this generation was still very new at the time. Everything in the background is flat cardboard and the audience in attendance looked like a modern art masterpiece. That's not the problem here. It's the speed at which we whip around these corners. It just makes me a bit car sick, to be perfectly honest. But the biggest flaw out of the gate is trying to wreck in wreckin' racing. It's so hard to hit anybody on this basic level. You're lucky if you get to shunt someone up the bum for a measly 10 points. And with a whopping 20 racers all active on the track at once, there should never be times where you're driving with nobody in sight. After the race, we see the results screen with little caricatures of different drivers. The Scum, the Taxman, Pyromaniac, Crunch Bunch, Trashman. Okay, I'm not opposed to creating fun characters, but does their occupation or level of cleanliness affect the way that they drive? Not really. While we're here, we can also view the pit compound in between races to survey the vehicle damage we've inflicted. Or received. But yeah, this is quite eerie. Why is there no music playing? It's just silence. Oh, God, why did they even bother making this? I guess this is supposed to be sort of a realistic feature, you know, like at real racing events, how they have all of the different teams lined up behind the pit stop in front of media, but it just serves no purpose. Have you ever seen the movie Cars? This is where, you know, the green car challenges Lightning to a big race and all the press goes wild, but in Destruction Derby, there's nothing like that, so it serves zero purpose. Thankfully, the next track is Crossover, which features a figure eight where the cars fly out and T-bone each other. Now this is what I wanted to see. Vehicular mayhem, carnage, the crunch of metal on metal, seeing all those little crumbs fly off of the cars when they trade paint. That's what it reminds me of, cookie crumbs. The cars themselves are more like a kicked-in shoebox, but there is still something quite satisfying to the crashes. Your car's health is represented in the bottom right, so you can see where you've taken the most damage, introducing a little bit of survival strategy. But even then, it's pretty much the same thing as before. Even with the crossover, it's hard to rack up many points, and if you DNF, you're forced to awkwardly wait for the race to finish. This game does surprisingly offer a replay function, so why not let me sit and watch the rest of the event continue if I so choose? Level 3 is Ocean Drive, and oh my god, get off the road, damn learner drivers. Ugh, this is the same as before. Why is everything so flat? Usually racing games have, you know, this thing called terrain. Even 2D sprite-based racing games had terrain, so why is this lacking so bad? All the flat earthers be wetting their pants right now, like, look everyone, proof! I see why they call it stock car racing. This is honestly one of the most vanilla games I've ever played. Cactus Creek has more crossover points, thank God, but you can see what the problem is here, right? Nothing is really happening. The serious collisions are so infrequent, there is next to no variety between races, and most importantly, it's drab. This is not fun to play in any aspect. They're either very brave or very stupid to be advertising Wipeout in the background of some of these levels, because holy shit, I know what I'd rather be playing right now. After 5 races, we get to enter the Demolition Derby in the Bowl. Of course, everything in this game is so fucking flat, it's less of a bowl and more of a dinner plate, if you know what I'm saying. Surprisingly, this is actually slightly more fun than majority of the racing because we can actually do the combative stuff here, chasing down cars and slamming them for points, but we disintegrate so quickly that it's actually better to play it safe and just stay away from everyone. And where is the fun in that? It's sad and lonely when there are only a handful of cars still running. And for what? What do we get for passing the season? A new season on the same levels with the same problems. Maybe you go in reverse around the track, oh, and if you're lucky, the sky is probably a different colour, but that's it. What a waste. To think that they expect you to do 5 seasons of this is a piss take, even in 95. If you do actually endure it though, you'll be rewarded with the secret monastery course, and holy shit, what is that? Terrain? Actual variation to the track layout? Yeah, I was shocked too. This level features a simple tunnel that we get to drive through, but not much else. And let me tell you, that must be a very powerful tunnel because it tanks the frame rate whenever it becomes visible. Honestly, with only 5 courses and only 1 arena, this is an incredibly limited experience without much to praise. Vehicular damage was a concept that maybe started to find its feet in this title with the destruction system and car physics, but it's just not represented well at all by the litany of other glaring issues. Boring levels, mediocre graphics, a vital lack of content, and a soundtrack spawned from a MIDI keyboard on crack. Ugh. Let's look at another early game on the system, Ridge Racer. Sure, it only has a limited number of tracks, but they're all satisfying to navigate and learn the terrain while jamming that killer soundtrack. So really, there is no defending this. Console limitations are not an excuse. Maybe, just maybe, this game would have been more fun if you had a few friends to play it with. You know, just being stupid and crashing into each other for a laugh, that sort of thing. But, unfortunately, this game does not support multiplayer. Are you fucking kidding me? Yes, you heard me correctly. Multiplayer in this game is merely each player taking turns racing one after another, and then the fastest time wins. That's pathetic, dude! And with a total of 20 positions to fill out, you can invite your entire classroom over to take turns if you want. See, if you want the real multiplayer, you're gonna need 2 original PlayStation 1 systems, 2 copies of the game, a PS1 system link cable, and 2 televisions in the same room. Now I know in 2022, we're used to households having more than one TV, but back in the mid-90s, what are the chances that most families only had one TV available in the living room? So, what are you gonna do? Go over to a friend's house with your PS1, your copy of Destruction Derby, and your whole ass TV for some multiplayer action? It's bullshit! But theoretically, if you were to set up this shitty LAN party, then you can actually play competitive multiplayer modes via System Link. Which is something, but man, what a weird way of doing it. Or, if you really hate yourself, you could link up the 2 systems, but then play the normal multiplayer mode where everyone has to take turns for a destruction orgy of up to 40 players, all grinding out their fastest laps in a huge, epic tournament. Oh shit, doesn't that sound like fun? Hours upon hours of gameplay to be had there. Oh. Man, even if I had 40 other people to play this game with, I'd rather stick my dick in a rusty tailpipe. Destruction Derby gets 2 out of fucking 10.
Three, 2, 1, go!
Unfortunately, Destruction Derby was quite a successful game, meaning that far too many kids were subject to its nothingness. But if there is one positive to take away, it's that Destruction Derby 2 dropped the following year. And with marketing like this, you know they're not fucking around anymore. From the opening cutscene alone, there is a much grittier mood presented as we get ready for some fast-paced race action. And the menu music? Whew. This is the grungiest, grimiest sound to ever penetrate your ear holes. Racing right into the first event, the large strides this sequel takes is impressive. Visually, the graphics are looking a lot more solid, the soundtrack bangs hard, and would you look at that? Even the first track, which is still a basic circle, features authentic terrain. Sloped corners, a large crest into a long jump. I shouldn't be gushing over this, it should have been the standard from the first game. With big jumps, crossover segments, long canyon tunnels, and dazzling night lights through Liberty City streets, it's so nice to see some variety here. Another huge improvement is the destruction receiving a nice overhaul. The damage indicator now has been simplified to the most crucial elements, all 4 wheels of your car and the radiator, but a new feature on some levels is the pit stop. This allows you to drive in and actually repair your damage once within a race, not only increasing your total time out on the track, but also balancing the much tougher challenge at hand. The drivers here are ruthless. And when even the tracks bash us around as it is, taking on other races for wrecking points really is a matter of risk versus reward. But it's so much fun because of that. I feel like I'm being challenged to balance my strategies in order to capture victory. Each season includes 4 races and then ends with a demolition derby, and oh my god, the sheer volume of chaos that ensues here. These drivers have one mission: destroy your ass. And not in the good way either. Ah, look at them! It's like a cloud of wasps just enveloping me every single time. You can even see in the replay just how relentlessly they follow your every action. It makes these arenas next to impossible, but fuck, it's a blast though. I love these things. Completing a season unlocks a new level and derby arena, and while that's about the extent of the game, it's just significantly more satisfying to play through. If you've played these games, then simply put, you know what I'm talking about, even if I'm struggling to find the words to describe it accurately. But if you haven't played them, then just look at this footage side by side and tell me which one you'd rather play. One of the biggest improvements is simply how cars feel to handle. They're much weightier, so you can feel it move around every turn. Becoming airborne still manages to convey the sheer strength of this object cascading through the sky and thudding with a tremendous impact upon landing. We still only have the same 3 vehicles to pick from, but they feel a lot more different now, which is nice. I wish the other races had a little more personality out on the track to match this, instead of all being ruthless killers. While I would expect some conflict from someone named Psycho, Undertaker, or Heavy Metal Hero, the learner driver should not be challenging me every single race. Also, according to the game manual, the Trash Man, now simply known as Trash, is from my homeland down under. Now I find this offensive. No kidding. When I was a little kid and I read that information for the first time, my little baby heart was truly shattered. While there may only be 7 courses in total and 4 demolition arenas, the final of which is the Death Bowl, which has this huge pit of suffering to one side, they each offer enough variety to keep the game fun, and with all of the other improvements, you never really know what you're gonna get. Things can go from a casual race nailing every turn and coming in first, to a devastating pile-up so catastrophic that it blocks the entire course. Look at just how cool this is. Man, I even have some super old replays saved from when I was a little kid and this blockage happened on Chalk Canyon. Oh, holy shit. Whenever this happens, man, it just makes me so warm and fuzzy. But for as much as I love this game, I do need to remove my childhood biases. The difficulty is overwhelming most of the time. The only way I was able to beat this as a kid was driving the wrong way and scoring crazy points and just hoping that everyone else died before I did. Meaning that majority of the time, the foundations of a solid and consistent being the key word here, those foundations are yet to be fully laid and set. Which is a shame because while I can and still recommend this game to race fans who may have missed it, it can leave a lot to be desired at times. And much like its older brother, Destruction Derby 2 also fails in the multiplayer department, offering no true multiplayer experience. We can't even system link the consoles anymore. The following year in '97, the PC version of the game saw a free update that both included a patch for racer difficulty, but also introduced a true multiplayer experience. Unfortunately though, I imagine most players like myself haven't been able to try it out firsthand. So with all of that said, this one is a vast improvement with some soaring peaks, still alongside the valleys and troughs below. Destruction Derby 2 gets an average score of 5 out of 10. While the franchise at this point in time was primarily considered a PlayStation property, even so much so that the first shit heap somehow made it into the list of 20 games that were included in the PlayStation Mini console in 2018, Psygnosis were looking to port many of their franchises over to the Nintendo 64, and thus Destruction Derby 64 was born. Looking Glass Studios, known for the PC game Thief, took developmental duties while THQ acquired publishing rights. It's the end of the century now, and it's been 3 years since the last game, so with a different dev team and a different system altogether, I think it's safe to assume that this one may have fallen under the radar for many. Speaking firsthand, I did know that this game existed for many years, but I didn't even realise until I started working on this video that it's not just a simple port. Instead, it's something entirely unique.
Welcome to Destruction Derby!
Starting up in World Championship mode, we can see 4 different levels of difficulty, each of which needs to be unlocked, and whoa, would you look at that! There is actually a healthy volume of cars here to select from. They all seem to perform exactly the same, but hey, variety is a good thing, even if it is purely cosmetic. The first level, Seascape Sprint, shows us how to earn race points and the minimum requirement we need to progress, which is a welcome touch, I must congratulate. The confused racing versus wrecking of the previous 2 games can create a problem where players don't really know what they're trying to achieve out there. Is it better to win the race, or just give up instantly to smash into shit? 64 makes it nice and clear. Earn points by smashing other cars. Simple! Now let's drive. So I think it's important that we acknowledge the elephant in the room being the N64's graphical capabilities. Whoa, hey dude! Whoa! What the fuck? He crashed into me! What the hell is happening? Why are all of the drivers going the wrong way? Okay, so the biggest difference about this game is that a large portion of racers drive in the opposite direction to encourage head-on collisions and kills. Man, that's so weird. Like, I get it. Jak X had a secondary mode where you crash into oncoming traffic to earn as many points as you can by maintaining a combo of kills, and it was really fun to play, but just this as the primary and only race type in the game? Man, that's very strange. Alright, now that we've established that, what was I saying about the graphics? Okay, so of course, with the N64's lower resolution textures and unnecessary anti-aliasing for these cartridge-based games, the image quality can be quite muddy at times, so I wouldn't expect this game to meet the standards of the PS1 or, God forbid, the PC versions of previous titles. For an N64 game though, honestly, it holds up quite well in my opinion. The levels feel built up enough, there is a lot more colour variety, and yes, plenty of different terrain to race on, including everything from dirt and asphalt, even to slippery ice up in the mountains. And while the music isn't nearly as heavy as we heard in number 2, it's still got a good industrial rock sound that fits quite well. So it's hard to find many flaws presentation-wise. If you want to be the envy of all the kids on the playground, you can even plug in an N64 rumble pack to introduce vibration to the controller so that you feel every hard knock you take in the race. There are a total of 8 levels and 4 arenas, and given the focused arcade-style objective, it's nice to see that they had fun getting creative with the level locations. You've got the beach sprints, dark cathedral-lined streets, and even the Vegas Strip, but you also get the Destruction Junction, which has this big crossover in the middle, and Terminal Impact, which leads you onto an airport runway. Now that's very rad. They're all quite fun to play, but they do tend to outstay their welcome, given that we're not restricted to any number of laps now. The race only ends if all of the other drivers are destroyed, you get yourself destroyed, or if the timer runs out. And scattered around the track are checkpoint markers that grant you more time, which is a very old school arcade system. I'm sure you're all familiar in games like Daytona. It's basically just a checkpoint race. But you also get time increases from doing damage and eliminating drivers, which is the goal here, so it's nearly impossible to run out of time. I mean, you can just do lap after lap after lap after lap and still have over a minute left on the timer, meaning that if you wanted to see this thing hit 0, you would have to actively waste time in order for that to happen. So just going around and around gets a little tired, especially once most of your opponents have been destroyed. It starts off way too easy, but even on the later difficulties, it's still a breeze to go through as you unlock new cars for completing events, and they're essentially custom built to handle the new level of challenge. The taxi cab, for example, might be slow, but it's built like a brick shithouse, so it's like driving a tank in GTA. Anything that comes near you is doomed. And that actually takes a lot of the fun away, because there is no more risk versus reward. And when there is no challenge, there is no point in playing. What's worse is that with each season, you unlock more courses, but only after replaying the same levels over and over again, either in reversed or mirrored and reversed. This faux inflation of content is something that really shits me in games. Listen, I'm fine with replaying a few maps here and there, but not the entire season just to get one more course. Let me tell you, this is an exhausting game to unlock everything. Given all of that, it's no great surprise that the Demolition Derbies are the more enjoyable event that I find myself looking forward to. A breath of fresh air. And with the AI difficulty being far more balanced here, you can actually begin to target drivers properly instead of running for your goddamn life the entire time. And that's all I really have to say about this one. While there are additional improvements made to the overall formula, it's still not a solid enough experience in my opinion. It's nice to see the more inventive track design with an abundance of shortcuts, a greater emphasis on unlockables, and balancing out the consistency between racing and combat, but this is such a slog to get through. It's just so repetitive, more so than the first game, which is just shocking to me. And while it does have its moments, it just has me longing for something better. However, there is still one last saving grace. Local multiplayer! Hell yeah, dude, let's check it out. To think it took 3 games to finally get the multiplayer right. Jesus Christ, we are doomed as a society. That's pathetic. But this is a bit more fun, trying to crash into each other and seeing who can survive, but in race events, you're lucky if you can even pass each other once before someone gets KO'd, so the racing falls flat on its ass. And again, if I'm gonna force my friends to play a racing game with me, there is no shortage of better options. Destruction Derby 64 unfortunately falls victim to a 4 out of 10. To be honest, I couldn't really recommend this game. Not to anybody, because it's just so bland and drawn out. It leaves no impact whatsoever on the genre, which is a problem because at this point, this series is starting to tread some serious water, and I don't really know how it can recover.
Can anyone stop their mechanical mayhem?
On the eve of the PlayStation 2 in 2000, Reflections had moved on to larger projects like the Driver franchise along with the first Stuntman game, so Studio 33, a small subsidiary of Psygnosis, was given the green light to work on a new Destruction Derby game published by Sony Computer Entertainment Europe and through Midway in the US. Yeah, the same Midway of course, responsible for the old arcade game Demolition Derby. My, we've come quite a long way since then, haven't we? Already we're back into the grittier, heavier presentation with Destruction Derby Raw. Right out of the gate, we've got a nice selection of starter vehicles, and the opening race is a figure 8 with a level crossing point and jump. Hell yeah, dude, we're already back on track with this one. The cars are so much weightier here, you feel the engines grunt as they buckle against walls and other drivers. It's quite stiff, but it feels good. These beefy hogs of horror feel quite realistic to drive. And once again, our objective is clear: earn the most points by crashing into other drivers. While previous game manuals have listed a few ways to earn points, this game introduces an entirely overhauled collision system, taking into account small shunts versus devastating slams, barrel rolls and twists and turns, mid-air corkscrews, and God only knows what else, and isn't shy about telling us what's going on with these pop-ups on screen. It's fucking wild, dude, and so satisfying, so let's get out there and cause some havoc. We've got 2 different career modes on offer. Smash for Cash is all about earning money from races to purchase and maintain your garage of vehicles for each new race, but honestly, that doesn't interest me nearly as much as Wreck and Racing. All we get here is a simple tree that branches out onto new events as you win races, ending with a final challenge level to win a trophy and unlock a new ride. Oh, this is so damn fun, let me tell you. My boyfriend and I played through all of the games for this video together, and up until this point, Raw was by far the most rewarding experience. Each new track introduces new destruction opportunities, you can incorporate a variety of different strategies, and the courses actually encourage you to crash into people. And aiming for this with the overhauled physics and weightier cars, it's like perfection in your hands, near impossible to fault. They fly, but they land hard, introducing a next-gen level of realism, but still unmatched in the bouncy and fun arcade feel. I will say that cars don't smash up nearly as much though. There are no cookie crumbs flying around, you can't really lose your wheels or anything either. We've still got a little health meter representing our car, but in the centre is an overall damage meter. 64 was like this as well, generalising your health rather than focusing on specific areas of the vehicle, which does have its positives and its negatives. It means that constant head-on collisions aren't going to blow your radiator like in number 2, but then it also takes away some of the strategy, you could argue. Sure, you still need to balance racing and wrecking, as you also earn points for finishing all of the laps in a high position, which often makes the difference between winning or failing an event. However, if you get knocked around too much and wreck, you automatically DNF and fail the event. Yes. If your vehicle is completely destroyed during a race, you fail that entire event and have to start over. What the actual fuck? I mean, okay, to explain why this is such an egregious error, let's back up a little bit, shall we? Every single game so far, if you crash out, your total points from hitting other cars remains your final score for that level. All through 1, 2, and 64 it was like this, so that players weren't deterred from causing damage, as it was a genuine tactic for progression. But then here, where it's still required to rack up some insane wrecking points, you can be in some instances dramatically penalised for doing so. I just don't get it. What made them think that was a sound decision? This severely increases the overall difficulty of this game. It's quite deceptive. That's the best way I could describe it. Early levels are easy, but the further you progress down this tree, things get far out of control. The mix of race and wreck points does make total sense, but not this way. It feels incredibly unbalanced, asking the task of you to both crash into other drivers and survive the race in a high position. It means that once you earn your points, you've got to play it safe out there, like, ooh, be careful sweetie, don't forget to call me when you get home safely. It's pussy shit. The pit stop mechanic of 2 is no longer present, it wasn't in 64 either, which is weird as hell to me, as it did so much to keep things relatively balanced when the goal is to be somewhat self-destructive. But probably the easiest fix for this would have been to introduce stunt points, to encourage you to drive better to win. Be it getting long hang time on a jump, drifting corners successfully, that sort of thing. It would have completely balanced out the difficulty here and provided an even wider array of playstyles to be effective. Instead, a single fuck up and you'll be kicking yourself for the next half hour on a single track trying to rack up the insane points that seemed so easy the first time when you failed. It's still enjoyable enough to play though, for as hard as it is, we both felt determined the entire way through to want to unlock every single branch in this mode. So it is a challenge, but the good kind that makes you want to persevere. though it does get frustrating at times. One of the hardest levels, Car Park, is a simple loop through a parking garage with a large outdoor area, but holy shit, I cannot describe to you just how unpredictable this level is. I swear, it's sheer luck that you can even earn enough points without getting knocked out in the process, but the passing grade here is so fierce that you also need to win. By some sort of freak chance on my final lap, on my final pixel of health, all of the other drivers had been knocked out, so I was able to gingerly, oh so gingerly, go around for one final lap and complete the event. And for all of the levels with sick jumps and crazy collision points, the easiest levels are those simple stock car tracks that are just a circle for 12 laps, as you can push other drivers up the walls leading to high scoring flips. Otherwise, it seems like the only way to win here is to accidentally cause the coolest shit to happen that you'll ever see off screen where you'll never see it. You'll be driving and the game just starts throwing points at you because of one tiny thing you did, causing a huge domino effect resulting in a multiple car pile-up. If we'd had a Burnout-esque slow motion camera to see the action, that would have been so much better. But we can't even go into the race replays to see it because rather than showing us the entire race, we only get brief highlights, often not showing us anything of interest. You've got to be careful viewing these as well because you can very easily restart the event by accident and lose your progress this way. I'm embarrassed to say that this happened to me more than once. But yeah, the one thing that we're here for, crashing into other cars and seeing the crazy collisions, and at times we can feel incredibly removed from that part of the experience. The final event in Wreck-'n' Racing is a race inside of a demolition derby arena which just doesn't work. There is no clear direction on what the goal here actually is. Do I crash into people or do I complete my laps around the border? Even the AI drivers are confused, so they just kind of roam about and slam into each other. It's really odd because there are arena events here, your standard demolition derbies, but also Skyrise mode where you need to eliminate other racers by pushing them off of the top of a building. These are surprisingly quite fun. It's odd that none of this content was featured throughout the various branches of the career. It makes them feel like an afterthought. And when the cars you unlock from completing branches can only be used if you play everything again in Smash for Cash mode and save up enough money to purchase them, it's a real letdown to say the least. This game is still a lot of fun to play through despite some of its errors, but the moment you beat it, the flat fart of a finish is a real letdown. Still, I can't deny the amount of fun you can have here, and finally, you and all of your PlayStation buddies can compete in local multiplayer. But only for the arena events.
Yeah, that's just not good enough at this point. But even still, Destruction Derby Raw is a game that I can definitely recommend, especially if you're a fan of the genre. So much so that I'm confident in giving this game a 6 out of 10. Raw took some massive strides in the right direction, but it's still not perfect. And at this point, I'm starting to doubt that it ever will be.
In 2004, the final game in the series, Destruction Derby Arenas, was released on the PlayStation 2. Developed again by Studio 33, right as they were purchased by Electronic Arts, I'd wager a bet that most people have never heard of this game. The first I ever saw of its existence was on a PS2 demo that I had as a kid that come with my console. On it featured a hype trailer for arenas boasting crazy wrecks, bigger courses with a large focus on environmental hazards, and a vehicle customization suite filled out with armor and turbo rockets to supercharge your ride. So no lie, I was stoked to play this game. And yet, I never found myself a copy.
Despite always longing to try this game out for myself, I never seemed to find it in stores. I never stumbled into it while browsing online marketplaces, and after a while, I just kind of took all of that mystique as a bit of a red flag. But finally, I've got myself a copy, so let's check it out. The game opens without any fanfare, just straight onto the main menu. The primary championship mode here, we get to select a character, and as you can see, they've each got more fleshed out personalities with car designs to match, and there are a lot to unlock by winning the different events. It's laid out like a Grand Prix, with 3 race events and then a demolition derby at the end, and if you have enough points at the end of the season, you'll unlock the next one, filled with even more unique courses. But as I'm sure you've probably already guessed just by looking at this game is far more vibrant, ditching any semblance of realism for a more over-the-top arcade feel. It looks fine, not the direction that I would have taken the series in if I was behind the wheel, but it's nice to see that levels are incredibly fun and varied. We've still got street courses, but we also have airfields, industrial factories and construction sites. But probably the biggest feature introduced here is the various power-ups scattered along each course. Everything from bonus points, super turbo boosts and super handling for tight corners. But there are also these detonator icons which trigger environmental effects. They cause explosions, debris to fly all over the track, and various other crazy results. This is a lot of fun, I must say. Triggering an aeroplane to land on the runway mid-race and crash into other cars is such a beast move, and the demolition arenas aren't safe from calamity either, featuring pits of fire, springs that launch you across the map, collapsing floors, giant pendulums and the sort, all there to inflict as much pain as possible. This definitely lives up to the adrenaline-fueled insanity that I always expected from this game. However, that is unfortunately the end of my praise for this game. Yeah, I hate to say it, but Arenas really struggles with some very important aspects, and I just can't ignore it anymore. As much as I totally love some of the levels here, it gets quite repetitive as they all have some sort of crossover point. These have always been highlights whenever they appear, but on every track, it loses interest. And while it certainly encourages earning points from doing damage, that can still be incredibly difficult to do. The AI are finely tuned and know how to handle themselves out there, so you'll just barely be scraping by on points. Even when you think you can get the upper hand, you drop a building or something onto the races ahead of you and it doesn't even do anything! What the fuck? What's the point of it then if it does fucking nothing to affect the race? If you want to play a game that does this sort of thing right, then try out Split Second. It takes the destructive environments to a next level, letting you bring down entire buildings to create new shortcuts, destroy other races, and aid you to a first place position. It's the proof of concept that Arenas wish it had laid the groundwork for. The racing itself here also isn't the best either. I will give them some credit, all of the cars feel significantly different to handle, but none of them are great. Some are too slow to keep up, a few of them don't even turn corners without the handling power up. Mostly is that it all just feels too floaty, there is no weight, so spin-outs are far too common. Coming off of Raw, where the cars felt perfect for the nature of the races in that game, this is on the other side of the spectrum, and it just doesn't work. Even the camera can be a pain from time to time, sticking like glue to one position, or just cutting to wider angles whenever it pleases. And the most egregious error, there is not even any vehicle customization. No. That was the one thing advertised that I was most excited about. So it turns out that despite the fact this feature was clearly functioning at some point during development, it was ultimately removed before the game released. You can still get upgrades for your cars, but only by completing a championship event in first place. You then unlock a predetermined upgrade, and that's it. It doesn't even make that much of a difference from what I can tell. That is such a disappointment. This must have been a last minute change because even the back of the box still mentions that you can customize these pieces to your liking. The fucking scumbag liars. So basically, you're restricted to only one car in the championship mode at any one time. Once it's fully upgraded, you'd have to go through the entire thing again and again with each car you unlock to get those additional upgrades. It's fucking stupid. And like I said, getting points and winning the race is hard. We still get race points based on how quickly we finish, which does conflict with the wrecking points in a major way. But thankfully someone heard my complaining about Raw and included stunt points to try and balance things out. Getting long hang time or mid-air flips does all help, but it's not nearly enough, I'm afraid. This game just kind of lost the plot a bit, and I don't really understand why. This series continuously crafted strong foundations and just never seemed able to finish establishing them. There is some cool stuff to see here, like the monster movie arena and the secret unlockable dam level riding up along the walls, which even features a full loop, but the AI drivers never touch it, and what the hell? It spits you out into a wall! How do you even mess that up so badly, guys? Seriously? I think this game was merely an experiment, in all honesty. While finally we can do local couch multiplayer with a friend for both arenas and races, one of the biggest selling points here was the online racing. Yeah, PlayStation's early attempts at online gameplay, DD Arenas was one of the big titles named for that, boasting up to 20 races committing vehicular homicide all at once, which, honestly, is kind of impressive, I will admit. Unfortunately, I can't really comment on the quality of the online experience now that the servers are officially closed, but given that the regular offline gameplay can't decide between running at 60 frames per second or around 15, I would have hated to see the online race quality back in 2004. Listen, it's a disappointing end to the franchise, but I do want to sing the positives as loudly as I can. Fun, inventive level design, improving on mechanics like earning points, a vast increase in content to unlock, and getting the multiplayer right. I did enjoy my time with this, but the actual fun was hit or miss most of the time, going up and down like a Richter scale on the fritz. Destruction Derby Arenas overall is a mediocre experience without much interest beyond its place in history for racing games. So I think a 4 out of 10 is a perfect score for this far from perfect title.
So that was the Destruction Derby franchise. It lasted almost an entire decade despite its incredibly rocky start, but even through all of its great successes, it never really reached its full potential in my opinion, which is an incredible shame. But, you know, there is one thing that it did really well. Destruction Derby left a lasting impression. I mean, even despite many of the flaws, you'd have been mad not to realise the potential showcased in these games, the potential of an entirely new type of racing genre. So, to end off this already lengthy episode, allow me to quickly take you through some of the demolition racing alternatives that I've happened to play over the years, and see how they compare. The first of these, suitably named Demolition Racer on the PS1, Dreamcast and PC is where we'll begin. Developed by Pitbull Syndicate, mostly known for some of the test drive games, it was published by Infogrames, and let me tell you, this one is fun. Sure, graphically it might not hold up nearly as well, but gameplay-wise, it's fast-paced, fun, chaotic, and definitely destructive. It's got some simple but fun tracks with splits and jumps, it's got item pickups too to regain some health and earn additional points, and while it does have similar floaty controls like arenas, it is much easier to keep yourself on course. I've had so much fun with this game over the years, launching onto cars and seeing them instantly explode into a high score for me never gets old. I love that you can even customise the cars too with different paint jobs and logos. Speaking of logos, apparently the developer's logo was stolen and used for a neo-Nazi group in the early 2000s, which is fucked up.
The demolition arenas take a little bit of a back seat here with the racing as the star, but are still good fun for what they offer. Nothing incredibly standout, but a solid alternative worthy of a 5 out of 10. As far as the PS1 version goes anyway. The remastered Dreamcast version has some additional content and overhauls the entire experience, so maybe try that one out for yourself and let me know how it goes. Next up is Driven to Destruction, as it's known in PAL regions. This is actually from the Test Drive franchise and is one of the later titles Eve of Destruction for those of you in the US. And let me tell you, if you're in the US, then this is the game for you, cause it's pure redneck racing, boys! This game is a lot more bogan, as we say here in Australia. All about dirty, sweaty boys and men wrecking their bush bangers in a wide variety of destructive events. Races, figure 8 races, races where you go forwards and then backwards, races where you have to tow another car behind you and jackknife into people, buses versus car races, demolition derbies, and it's even got a career mode with RPG elements and a semi-open world. What the shit? We get to pick from a variety of names like Billy Ray, Outlaw, Mr. Fist, and Wrong Way Willie. Yes, Wrong Way Willie. His cock must be on back to front. You start off living in this trailer, inheriting the car of your dead grandmother, so of course, we do what every respectful young man would do and trade it into the scrapyard for a heap of junk to go out and do some demolition derbies. We even have random encounters on the way to the events, we win prize money and have to manage our purchases and repairs between events. Oh, my grandmama, she be so proud of me, driving this hearse with her corpse in it around the track. I love you, Grandma! 4 out of 10. It's okay. It's worth trying out if it looks fun to you. Another series I've heard good things about is MotorStorm, with several games of off-road racing action, Apocalypse specifically featuring crazy storms, destructive environments, and from what I can see, they all look like great fun. Unfortunately, I haven't had the chance to play any of these for myself, but maybe we'll check them out someday in the future. Now finally, I want to mention the Flat Out series developed by Bugbear Entertainment, and some of you might be able to see where this is leading us. The first game released in 04 following Arenas, and is honestly what Arenas should have been. The next step up from Raw, taking the carnal racing action to the next generation, with incredible destruction physics, while still maintaining that arcade feel, which is exactly what these games do really well. The destruction physics are incredible, it looks so much more detailed, especially next to the overly polished rubber looking aesthetics in Arenas. It's got a variety of fun tracks, and even modes where you get to windshield cannon the driver into different stunts, and man, it's just such a laugh. This game got a sequel which was eventually remastered on 360 known as the Ultimate Carnage Edition, and let me tell you, it only gets better. Even more chaos, greatly improved handling and AI, some absolutely stellar levels, and just an overall great experience from what I've played. Now admittedly, I haven't spent a lot of time with the games just yet, as I merely demoed them for the sake of this video, so I won't be giving these any scores, but I do want to fully play through them in the future. But already, from what I've played, I can recommend them, and with the entire series on Steam, I'd say that's your best bet. For me though, I just had to try out the original PS2 version to see how well it ran, and my god, despite everything going on here, it runs like a gem. The developers behind these games would go on to create, in my opinion, what is one of the most amazing racing titles ever conceived. However, it was a rocky road to get it there. In 2012, the Finnish studio began working on a project known as Next Car Game, and in late 2013, launched a Kickstarter to get the project funded. They were looking for $350,000 to finish development, with a stretch goal of $1.5 million to get it published on the next-gen systems at the time. Unfortunately though, it was a flop, merely earning just under a quarter of that smaller goal. After that failure, the game was made available for a trial pre-order via their website and was met with a lot of praise from racing fans, leading to next car game being published on Steam Early Access in January of 2014, where it smashed $1 million within a week. That is insane! I can recall that time period really well. I was really big into Let's Play channels at the time, and so many of them played Next Car Game, and oh my god, the carnage on display was simply incredible. For the child in me who was such a fan of Destruction Derby, I can't believe it's taken me so long to get around to it, but it's time to finally talk about Wreckfest.
Bloodstains, speed kills, fast cars, cheap thrills, rich girls, fine wine. I lost my sense, I lost control, I lost my mind.
Exiting early access for an official release in mid-2018, 4 years later, what an incredible success it has been, garnering overwhelming praise, and rightfully so. Let me tell you how awesome this game is. This is peak demolition racing. 24 cars on the track crashing and crackling into pieces with each collision, a large array of maps spanning woodland courses, deserts and stadiums of unimaginable chaos, loops of death, head-on collisions, and Wrecknado. Hell yeah, dude. With such a large selection of vehicles that you can modify, upgrade, and trick out to be as offensive or defense as your mad little heart desires, destruction derbies with your motorhome, your lawnmower, or a school bus, you don't even need to leave your couch to see some of the gnarliest car action you'll ever see. It is just incredible. This is the evolution I've been waiting to see for so many years. What my little baby eyes saw playing Chalk Canyon all those years ago, and now it's fully realised in eye-watering detail. And my god, despite all of this happening on screen, man, it runs like a dream, especially on the PlayStation 5. And there is just so much content here. Regular events to unlock additional content, DLC that's actually decent, and just hours and hours of fun, challenge, and most importantly, satisfying racing. Hell, it's even got a few retro courses in here from Carmageddon and Rally Trophy, Bugbear's first ever game. I must please ask the team though, if you happen upon this video, I would pay good money for some classic Destruction Derby levels to be added in at some point. I think that would just seal the deal and complete the evolution of this genre and franchise. Man, I can only dream. Wreckfest is an absolute gem of a game, one of the best races I've ever played for the time I've spent with it in recent weeks working on this video. While it's still not perfect, as there is somehow no couch multiplayer, which is a big concern of mine as my partner and I enjoy a lot of racing games together, this is still one of the best of its genre, and I'm proud to say that Wreckfest earns a very solid 7 out of 10. I'm going to leave them with some room for improvement because I really want to see it, but that brings us to the end of our journey. Destruction Derby may have been slow off of the grid, but overall, its contributions tended to far outweigh the negative aspects to create some truly nostalgic games. But honestly, I think its greatest legacy is what it inspired. Generations upon generations of developers to push the boundaries on engine capabilities, experiment outside the box of sleek simulation races, and in the end, create a genre totally unique from other racing games. A genre that I just adore from the bottom of my heart.
Listen, no matter what critiques I've had today, I just want to send out a huge thank you to all of the amazing developers who worked on any of the games featured in today's video, as your hard work and contributions to the racing genre are recognised here, and we all love you for that. I also want to send out a thank you to all of my patrons and everybody who watches the channel. I know this video was something kind of different, but I hope you all enjoyed it and have a few takeaways from the experience. If you did enjoy the video, then be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and remember to share it with your friends and on social media. I'm Square-Eyed Jack, and I hope you have a great fucking day. Thanks for watching.